Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a presentation on aggressive driving and when aggressive driving turns into road rage. Just a few things before we jump into introducing our speakers for today. Just remind yourself that if you are not on mute or your video is not muted, to go ahead and do that. That just ensures a smooth presentation and webinar for everyone. I want to go ahead and introduce our two speakers for today. Our first speaker who's going to talk about aggressive driving is April Ramos. She is a program manager with the National Safety Council with the Our Driving Concern program. Our second speaker after April is Lieutenant Craig Cummings. He is going to talk to us a little bit about road rage and what employers can do in those situations. He is with the Texas Department of Public Safety in the Southeast Texas Media and Communications Office. So we're going to turn it on over to April to get started, and I hope you enjoy this webinar.
Thank you so much, Deanne. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Please bear with me as I share my screen, which I think is already up for you. Give me a quick thumbs up otherwise to let me know. Okay. Hopefully you can see my slides. I'm going to pretend like you can and just wait for somebody to tell me otherwise. It will advance. That would be great. Okay, little technical difficulty here. Try this again. You guys are great for standing by while we get this going.
Oh, that looks good.
All right, well, let's see if it will advance this time. Because last time it was up, it just wouldn't advance. So let's see. Good grief. Well, it doesn't want to advance. Try one more time. Thank you guys again for your patience. Closed it and reopened it. So hopefully gonna see some magic happen here in a minute. If not, I don't even know, but one thing at a time. Let's see. I think we are up. Hopefully you see the right screen.
We do.
All right. All right. Yes. I feel like I won the lottery. Okay, let's try this again. Thanks for joining us, everybody. As Deanne said, please mute your microphone if it's not already. I think I can safely say it is. And go ahead and type your name and agency and location into the chat. We'd love to see where you are geographically and what agency you're from. And then please do use the chat for any questions or comments that you have. All right, so what is aggressive driving? That's the reason that you're here today. Let's start with this definition from NHTSA. This is pretty formal, but NHTSA says it's when an individual commits a combination of moving traffic offenses so as to endanger other persons or property. Okay? I really like this one from the Texas Department of Insurance, which is any unsafe behavior performed purposely with ill intent or disregard for safety that puts other drivers or property at risk. So, as you all know, doing things on purpose, right, without any care for others, would be a more simplistic definition of what aggressive driving. Important point to remember, though, that these are traffic offenses, things that are really annoying, such as people speeding. And not all speeding is aggressive driving, we should point out, because sometimes you might exceed the speed limit in order to pass another vehicle safely, or some other circumstances that you might need to temporarily increase your speed. Tailgating, that's pretty much always aggressive. Excessive honking, not just a one-off honk, but excessive. Cutting off other drivers, running red lights. Here's a few more examples of aggressive driving: weaving in and out of traffic, changing lanes without signaling, locking cars, attempting to pass or change lanes. You may have seen this. People just refuse to let other people over. Passing a vehicle on the wrong side of the road. So maybe not even the shoulder, which you're not really supposed to do, but moving the vehicle into the opposite lane of traffic, if that makes sense. So, what is the prevalence of aggressive driving in Texas? Well, this is really difficult to measure because, as you saw with some of those examples of aggressive driving, we don't necessarily measure that or have a mechanism to measure it. And citation data from the different types of law enforcement agencies, whether it be a county sheriff's office or a municipal police department or the state police, it's really hard to access that citation data, much less, you know, bring it all together to find what is going on in terms of aggressive driving. What we do have readily available to access is crash data. And this comes from the Crash Records Information System, otherwise known as CRIS, from TxDOT. And there are over 6 million crash records in this public database. I do hear somebody's microphone, so just double checking everyone's on mute, please. Thank you so much. So again, the CRIS system, there's records in there, crash records from Texas from 2015 all the way to 2025. So there's a lot of information in there. And to give you one example of what we can kind of get an idea, is this Texas crash data is from 2023. These are all fatal crashes where one of the reasons was failed to control speed. And so just to elaborate a little bit more on that, all law enforcement agencies, when there is a crash, they're supposed to fill out a form that's called a CR3, and that information gets put into this database. So it's crash data, not citation data, just to be clear. And so, like I said, last or year before last, in 2023, there were 384 crashes where failure to control speed was a reason for the fatal crash. There were 419 fatalities in those crashes, along with 292 injuries. And I think it's really important to point out the injuries because just because there was a fatality doesn't mean it's just over with the fatality. I mean, that's enough in and of itself, but there are survivors of the crash, and we don't know, we can actually look to see the severity of the injury, but it's going to last beyond the moment of the crash is the point. The map on the right is a heat map of all those crashes, those fatal failure to control speed crashes in Texas. So obviously the red coloring is the most concentrated crashes, number of crashes, but you can also see some light blue and green where crashes of this kind occurred as well. So pretty much covering the state. You have some little pockets way out there toward the Big Bend area, but otherwise, this is a problem in Texas. So what is Texas law? What does Texas law say about aggressive driving? Well, the Texas law actually refers to it as reckless driving. And as you can see from the slide, it says a person commits an offense if the person drives a vehicle in a willful or wanton disregard for the safety of persons or property. So what does that mean? Well, there's that word willful, and kind of what we've already said. People are doing things on purpose, but really it's just the stubborn driver that has this intention to do what they want without thinking about anybody else. And so some of you may be thinking, well, that's pretty much all the drivers on the road. And sometimes it can definitely feel that way. But But officers have this law as a tool in their pocket. So if they see some of those aggressive driving examples that we listed earlier, they can pull them over and issue them a citation. And the fine for these offenses is $200 or up to $200 per offense, and or up to 30 days in jail. And I don't know about y'all, but 1 day in jail is too much. So um, maybe, another reason not to do any of those things. But speaking of reasons, why do we drive aggressively? Well, on the job, our reasons for driving aggressively is maybe we're trying to make it to an appointment or delivery. We could be running late. The traffic, definitely the traffic. I don't think we need to convince anybody traffic is a lot to deal with. And then that last bullet, anonymity. Much like social media, we get in our vehicles and close the doors and think we can act a different way and no one's going to see us. But that's not true. That's not the case. Um, Reasons that we drive aggressively off the job are pretty much the same reasons, right? So this is a really good reason for employers to invest in training and other things that are going to reduce aggressive driving and improve traffic safety at your agencies, because your employees will take what they've learned and use it on the job as well as off the job. So what can employers do? Well, that first bullet, safety culture, is so important. Safety culture is not a one and done safety training. It's something that you do all the time. You live, eat, breathe safety, much like we do our football culture here in Texas, as when during football season anyway. But definitely building, maintaining a strong safety culture from the top down. Having strong policies in place, making sure your employees understand those policies, and making sure that they had a say in the policies. They might have some great ideas for your transportation policies. And then technology. I think these days we know cameras are everywhere. And if you're on social media at all, you probably have seen a lot of people's TikTok, X, Instagram posts with dangerous driving or road rage, as our DPS friend is going to get into here in a minute. But technology, so using those in-vehicle monitoring systems and other technology to help. Talking about it, so that photo is an office, but talking about what's going on, what your drivers are seeing on the road. So if you're working at an agency where you have professional drivers, fleet drivers, just having a moment, letting them have some space to talk about what happened, right? What kind of day they had. Maybe it was great feedback, but maybe they need to vent about some of the people on the road. And then lastly, rewarding safe drivers and safe driving behavior. This is so important. Maybe you remember from your days in school or just when you were a kid, your parents rewarding you for good behavior or teachers pointing out good behavior. And they didn't even acknowledge the bad behavior or poor behavior. It made you want to do better when they singled somebody else out for doing something good. So taking that to the job site, celebrating all of your wins in regard to your safety culture and safe driving. What are some tips for employers, some real life tips? So journey management, journey management, journey management. I can't say this enough. Before you and or your employees even get in the vehicle, do you know where you're going, right? Do you have your route mapped out? Do you have everything you need for your trip? Are you well rested? All of the things that encompass, right, a nice, safe, pleasurable, I mean, dare we hope, pleasurable road trip, right? So that second bullet, be tolerant and forgiving. I think sometimes we're quick to do this in service positions. Maybe a server at a restaurant was having a bad day, right? We like to say, we don't seem as quick to do this on the road. And I think we should be. I think that's a great attitude to have is, just assume that everybody's doing their best and be tolerant and forgiving. We don't know what kind of day that person's having that's weaving in and out of traffic. Maybe they legit are trying to get to an emergency. Is that the best way to do it? Maybe not, but, being tolerant and forgiving. They're going to be out of your way soon anyway. Avoid confrontation. That's in all caps. So if if having great journey management and being tolerant and forgiving and patient and calm, if that's not working for you, avoid confrontation. You don't know who's in that car, right? Maybe they're having a horrible day, so much so that they actually want to hurt somebody, physically hurt somebody. So avoid that. One of the best ways is avoiding eye contact, and that's where this picture of the gorilla is coming in. Because much like in nature, when you make eye contact with a gorilla, they see that as a threat, just like humans do, especially if you have an aggressive driver. If you stare them down or mad dog them, they're going to see that as a threat, and you're ready to go, right? You're hostile. You're ready to get into it with them. So just avoid the eye contact, just look straight ahead, and don't respond to aggression with aggression. I'm sure you've seen so many examples of this. Somebody passes you or passes somebody else aggressively, and then they speed up and try to catch them. Just let that person go and hope that they have a better day. Lastly, if you have to, report aggressive drivers if it's getting out of hand, if you feel threatened. And luckily, to talk more about this, we have Sergeant Cummings. And so let me cue up his slideshow for you. If you have any questions or comments as I'm queuing up this next slide deck, please do let us know.
I just want to know, could you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay,
can,
I just want to
Richard.
make sure.
Yes.
Thanks again for y'all's patience with my technical glitches. That is not the screen I want them to see. I swear I'm going to get there. I'm going to be persistent. Okay. All right. I can advance. Okay. Finally, hopefully you see the right screen, everybody.
It looks good, April.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Sergeant Cummings or Lieutenant Cummings, I apologize for dropping a rank. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Oh my
that's all
gosh.
right. Craig works for me. Hey, it's a real pleasure to be here and talk to you all today about something that is so important now that we're going to the holidays and more people are going to be on the highway because of the summertime. So just increases the likelihood of aggressive driving and road rage. And so I'm going to kind of focus on the criminality end of aspects of aggressive driving, road rage. You can advance the slide. So one of the things I wanted to do is just talk about kind of the macro level. We see about 46,000 motor vehicle crashes a year. That was in 2022. You could see the numbers there from 99. They hover around 40,000. So there is a significant number of people that are out there dying on the highways. And whatever we can do to reduce those numbers is what we're talking about here. And you can advance to the next slide, April. And so we talk about road rage. I know April talked a little bit about this. For our aspects on the criminality end of it, there are several different laws. We'll get into those in a minute. But it's an intentional assault by a driver or passenger in a motor vehicle that occurs on a roadway. And one of the things to be aware of is that that vehicle that's being driven can actually be considered a deadly weapon. And when we do the charging instrument, we'll put in there, like in an aggravated assault case, we'll put in what's called the deadly weapon paragraph, and that increases the charge from what may be a misdemeanor to a felony. You can go to the next page, April. And so whenever I write PowerPoints, I hate putting a bunch of words up there. So I don't want you to think I'm going to read all of that because I know you all are educated and you can read it. But for the Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Highway Patrol specifically, we use data that predicts where crashes and aggressive driving are more likely to occur, kind of like a heat map that April showed at the beginning of the presentation. And so we do that to put our troopers in positions out on the highways to reduce crashes and make sure that the motoring public has a better chance of getting home safe. And one of the things is making sure when we are looking at the road rage charges that we can file the applicable charges. And one of the things that we run into is that not many people are driving down the highway, or shouldn't be, with a cell phone in their hand recording whatever happens on them. So Tesla vehicles are really good at all the different cameras that they've got. And so we can pull a lot of different data off of those. If somebody has a camera that's mounted at the front and the back of the vehicle that's constantly recording, those things are very helpful. But it's important that you become a very good witness when describing what happened, because that will help the law enforcement officer identify the suspect and then make sure the appropriate charge is filed. Go ahead, April. And so I talked a little bit earlier about some of the existing laws in Texas. So we've got murder, aggravated assault, endangering a child, elderly or disabled individual, that's felony. Talked about reckless driving, and there are a lot of other offenses that can go into that. And so when we talk about aggravated assault, the culpable mental states, there's 3 different culpable mental states in which Texas recognizes for the aggravated assault, and that's intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. And recklessly is defined as that you should have known that result would have occurred based on your conduct. And so that's a easier culpable mental state to meet, but that still gets the prosecutor to aggravated assault, which means the defendant is now facing a felony assault charge, and if convicted, can be sentenced to TDCJ for a significant period of time. Go ahead, April. And so some of the things to avoid being involved in aggressive driving, April talked on some of these things here. I'll hit a couple of them. I know it's difficult to give angry drivers plenty of room. I'm human just like everybody else. And so when somebody cuts me off, there is that initial reaction to do something about it. And if I'm in a marked unit, clearly I can do something about it and do. But if I'm driving my personal vehicle or riding my motorcycle, I'm not going to. And I would encourage you not to get involved in it. And then use the left lane for passing only. And then using the horn, use it sparingly. That can often provocate things. And talking about provocation, avoid situations that can increase the likelihood of being involved in some sort of road rage incident. And then one of the big things is make sure you keep your emotions in check. This is huge. If you get in the vehicle and you know you're already late, I was running late someplace yesterday, and invariably when you're running late, there will be a bunch of people in your way to slow you down even more. And so I just acknowledged that fact and decided that I'm going to be late, and ended up being relatively on time. So just keep your emotions in check. You decide how you respond to whatever stimulus that's out there. That stimulus does not dictate your response. And then anticipate delays. And if you feel threatened, call 911. Get that line with law enforcement opened as soon as you can. Go ahead, April. And I mentioned, keep that line open until the law enforcement officer arrives. That call is recorded. Law enforcement can use that and does use that for prosecutorial purposes. And then when you feel threatened, you can use force when you reasonably believe the conduct is immediately necessary to avoid imminent harm. That kind of sounds like some legal mumbo jumbo here. Essentially, what we're talking about is you can use force when you know that you need to defend yourself. And that level of force is going to be something that you're going to have to decide what you're going to need to be able to do. But I say that to say that you don't have to watch somebody point a gun at you and just be defenseless. You can defend yourself. Go ahead, April. And one of the misconceptions, and when we go through recruit training and we teach law enforcement officers, there was a misconception by watching TV that you can get behind a car door and it stops bullets. And in Hollywood, Those car doors are magic. They stop a whole lot of bullets. In reality, the car doors are not going to stop bullets. Matter of fact, we have taken rifles and pistols from a significant distance, shot at a car, and the bullet goes all the way through the car. Um, so don't think that by being inside the vehicle that you're going to be protected from bullets if a firearm gets displayed. You will not. Those bullets will go through the windshield, go through all the glass, they'll go through the doors. The only place that you're safer, and this is what we teach our law enforcement officers, is to get behind the engine block. So put the engine block between you and the assailant. And then remember that a grand jury often reviews the conduct involving the use of deadly force. And so this is just a jury of 12 that has been impaneled to review these types of instances to determine if there is a reason to indict or what's called no bill. So just be aware of how that conduct will be reviewed and anticipate it. Go ahead, April. And so one of the things that we see on occasion is these fake guns. These guns, you can see there in the picture on the right and on the left, those are real guns. And they clearly look like they're fake. And when somebody displays a weapon, they're not going to be giving you a whole lot of time to ascertain whether it's real or fake. So you're going to have to make snap decisions about what that person has. And then that snap decision ends up rolling into what you do next. So I say that to say that somebody may display out a gun that looks fake and it can actually be very real. So be cautious. As soon as you see somebody bring out a gun, whether it's fake or it's real, or if you know it to be real, certainly that's a huge problem. And you need to get yourself away from that individual because clearly they have escalated this situation where they are now pulling out a pistol, and it may be just to intimidate you, or they may be intending to use it. But it's certainly not worth putting your life on the line or your passengers' lives on the line to just prove a point that in a couple of days won't matter anyways. Go ahead, April. And so some of the key takeaways here, and I hope I'm not going too quick. I know we're going to have a question and answer session here, and more than happy to answer any questions that you've got. But be in control of your emotions when you're behind the wheel. Make sure that when you get behind the wheel, that you're ready to take on whatever is going to approach you. And if you're not, then make a phone call and tell somebody you're going to be late. It's much easier to arrive alive than get out there behind the wheel and put yourself in a situation in which something terrible happens. And I don't want that for anybody. And then avoid situations that can quickly escalate. I've had vehicles here recently just ask me in my personal vehicle, and there's no need to escalate those situations. It's just not going to matter. And a matter of fact, if you were to look back maybe last week, try to think of the time somebody cut you off. How do you feel about it now? Probably it's a moot point. No, if you feel threatened, call 911. Get that line open to law enforcement. And then aggressive driving charges, as I mentioned before, they're hard to prosecute because there's not a lot of evidence that's out there. It's a lot of he said, she said. So be a good witness, report that aggressive driver or behavior to law enforcement. And then think about how a jury would review your actions, because that's what happens for law enforcement officers when we use deadly force. And that's what will happen to the average citizen who uses deadly force or force that results in harm to somebody else. And the other thing too is that if you see something suspicious and you can't call 911 or don't feel like it's worthy of 911, the Texas Department of Public Safety has an app called iWatch Texas. And then you can take the pictures that you took and then the license plate, and you can send that into iWatch Texas, and that gets put into a database. If it can be usable, then we do use it. And you never know when information like that can be huge in helping us solve crimes. And not only has it helped solve crimes, but it's definitely going to help solve crimes in the future as well. But that's it on my end, April.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to stop sharing now.
If anyone has questions, put them in the chat and we'll start We'll start addressing them. Someone surely has a question. We did a really good job of explaining. Okay, here's a question. Great. Craig, this is probably for you. It says, if you are on the highway and someone brandishes a weapon at you, after you slow down and call 911, what should you do? Do you follow them at a distance or do you just pull over?
Now, the best thing to do is to pull over, allow them to go on down the highway, or slow down significantly so that they continue going on. That firearm, that bullet that gets fired out of that gun can hit you before you hear the sound. And so it's vitally important to give space. That individual that's displaying the firearm has already said that they're thinking about deadly force. Whether they intend to do it or not is something that will be decided once they pull the trigger. So best thing to do is to take pictures if you can. If not, try to commit to memory that license plate number. And give that to law enforcement as soon as you can. We can go back through with the cameras and stuff that we've got out now, especially like in the Houston area, pull up Transtar data, look for vehicles, especially if they're on the tollway, and find out where these vehicles are. At a very minimum, we can have an officer go by the house and just knock on the door and say, hey, you were threatened. Someone alleged that you had a firearm and displayed it going down the highway. And that puts us on the radar. And that interaction alone may actually stop somebody from doing something like that in the future.
And can I just say, just to be clear, would you advise people to follow somebody?
No, I would, if they've already brandished a firearm, I would say don't follow them, because if you can see them, then they can fire back at you. And that's not a situation that you need to be in. And we see that all the time in chases that we're in. We'll even give distance between the vehicle that we're following or chasing and us. And sometimes they'll reach out the window and fire back at us. And we're blessed that our vehicles have bulletproof glass, Kevlar lining. It's like a tank going down the highway. But the average vehicle does not have that luxury. And so those bullets,
Absolutely.
when they're fired out of the gun, they're going to go right through the windshield, go right through the car doors.
The other thing about following is that could cause them to try to run a red light and cause another crash trying to get away from the person that's trying to follow them.
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry we didn't introduce you, Richard. Would you mind introducing yourself?
That's okay. I'm Sergeant Stanifer. I'm one of Lieutenant Cummings' subordinates for the PIO realm in the DPS.
Thank you,
so
Richard.
much.
We have another question for you. Can you please explain what fail to control speed is for people from other states that may not be familiar?
Yeah, so fail to control speed. This is one of those where it falls under the speeding category. And essentially is what happens is when somebody runs into the back of somebody else. So in order for this law to attach, the vehicle has to be legally on the highway, and then the other vehicle has to hit that vehicle that's legally on the highway. So we see this a lot where vehicles are stopped at a red light and one vehicle comes up behind them, doesn't stop in time, runs into the back of them. That's a fail to control speed case, and a classic fail to control speed case.
Good question.
It was. Okay, do we have any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Richard.
Everybody be aware of too, like Lieutenant Cummings say, people honk the horn. They do have a law in the books that excessive use of the horn, you can receive a citation for that.
Good to know. All right, any more questions? Those were two great questions.
Feel free to come off mute as well. You're welcome to ask your question.
It's all after lunchtime now. Everybody's probably like, just leave it on mute, let it ride till 5.
Yeah, and if you're on the line, if you're on the call and you drive a commercial motor vehicle and you have any questions in regard to that, please do ask. Please do ask those questions.
Yeah, great opportunity to do that.
and your school buses and the commercial vehicles, they have video cameras on them, so they know that their behavior is being monitored. But if anything happens, then they have that on video, and like Lieutenant Cummings said, we can move forward with that video to try to determine who the driver is.
Right. All right. I don't see any more. I'm flipping back and forth between the Q&A and the chat, and I think we got all the questions answered. One of the things I'm going to go ahead and do. Oh, we do have another question came through. What should you do if the aggressive driver gets in front of you and starts to slow down to a crawl? I have seen that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's a situation in which make sure you're in an area, as best you can, that other motorists are around you and see what's going on so that they can be witnesses as well. And if they're doing that, slowing down to a crawl, if you can take an exit to get away from them, that's great. Chances are they're slowing down so that they can have a physical confrontation with you. Don't give them the satisfaction. As soon as they slow down, try to go around them. And if that becomes an obvious issue where you can't go around them, you may find yourself in a physical altercation. And that the best thing to do is to make sure you call 911, tell the 911 operator what is going on immediately. They can advise you of things to do, and also get law enforcement sped up going there, turning the lights and siren on to go there, because it's no longer just a vehicle traveling down the highway as much as it is now. It's an assault in progress call.
Great, thank you.
Can I just ask real quick, Carla, that typed that question in, just out of curiosity, were you in a personal vehicle or a commercial motor vehicle? Just curious.
While we're waiting on Carla to reply, she said personal vehicle.
Okay. Sorry, I was just curious because sometimes, and again, the officers can speak to this, people don't understand that commercial motor vehicles can't slow down or stop like a passenger car. So I was just curious.
Ken, I'm going to click your microphone. You should have the ability to unmute if you want to ask a question or if you want to type it in the chat. Well, we're waiting for Ken. We do have another question. Have you seen people target commercial vehicles, such as causing a crash for insurance purposes or faking injuries?
Yeah, we've actually seen that. And we actually have investigators here that focus on that because it happens so prevalently. And the thing that I want to make sure people are aware of is that that's a crime. The insurance companies will definitely prosecute. And so we see that on occasion where somebody will do something that causes a crash. And thankfully, a lot of the commercial vehicles have, like Sergeant Standifer said, vehicle cameras in them. And that really helps aid in the prosecution because it shows that the vehicle just slammed on the brakes without due regard in the intent to cause a crash.
Right. Oh, we did have a comment, not a question, but it says that is correct. His drivers get the finger a lot just for trying to change a lane.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I often tell people is that 80,000 pounds rolling down the highway there. That person, they can hit the brakes as quick as they see something, but that vehicle is just not going to stop like a regular passenger vehicle is. And so it's not worth getting in a fight with an $80,000 or 80,000 pound vehicle.
Right. Well, and I think and I see this a lot on our roadways, our interstates, of the tailgating issues and people tailgating behind one of the big semis. And it takes, you can only, the force of going into that vehicle and they can't even see you, I've always been taught to stay so far back from a semi. If you can see their mirrors, then they can see you. And so many people ride up just right behind them, and it's very dangerous, and again, classified as aggressive driving with tailgating.
Mhm.
Let's see. Another question was, do you think dash cams help clear commercial drivers of wrongdoing? Internal facing cameras.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is some of the vehicle features are coming out now. My sister just bought a Ford F-250 that's got a little sensor up there that notices when the driver is falling asleep, and it engages the brakes to wake the driver up. And so from the folks on the commercial side, they've got different systems in there depending on which they've got that may do something like that. But also looking at the drivers is very helpful. We've had instances in which it's helped solve crashes, and then help solve crash investigations that we were seeing, as well as criminal prosecutions, because that video is showing what the other people may not be seeing.
Oh, we had another comment that said, I've had other drivers pull alongside my vehicle and act as if they're going to swerve into me, and I slow down and they do the same.
Yeah, when you're in an 80,000 pound vehicle, it kind of rules the road. So anybody that decides to come out there and decide they're going to try to roll into um, that big rig will roll over that passenger vehicle and keep right on going. That's foolish for somebody to get out there and try to do something like that. And the best thing that the driver can do is drive at the speed limit, maintain that lane of travel, and then continue on their route, doing the best they can to avoid this individual and avoid provocation.
Well, and I do think that what Officer Cummings said was really important about if you have the opportunity to take an off ramp and get off, then that kind of hopefully ends that back and forth type thing. So that's such a great example of what you can do to keep yourself safe, is if you can exit off, because you can get back on, especially like the interstate or something, but to actually just kind of reroute yourself for a short period of time. Great. Ken, did you have a final question?
Can y'all hear me?
Okay, great. All right. Well, this has been such a great webinar. We hope that you found it useful, and we're able to have some key takeaways that you can talk to your employees about when traveling on the road and handling aggressive drivers, but also some tips to not be an aggressive driver. I'm going to put into the chat a link to our evaluation. As you exit out today, if you'll take a quick minute to fill that out, this really gives us some important feedback as we look at scheduling other webinars and resources and things like that. And I will follow up with an email in a few days. We will put this, we'll work to put this out on our YouTube channel, so I can include that link in the follow-up, and any additional information that we can give you to help visit with your employees about aggressive driving and what to do when they encounter an aggressive driver or someone who is exhibiting road rage. So again, we thank you very much for your time. We know it's valuable and you chose to spend this time with us. And we look forward to seeing each of you at our next webinar. So check our training page out and sign up for the next one. So have a great day, and as always, be safe.